Colonel Naomi Ellison walked into a small supermarket on a peaceful weekend afternoon in Harrison Grove, Texas. Dressed in a white shirt, blue jeans, and sneakers, she blended in easily with the crowd. No one could have guessed she was a seasoned military officer who had spent her career commanding soldiers and defending the nation. After a long, stressful day, Naomi was enjoying a quiet moment picking up groceries. But that peace was broken by a careless act. At the end of the aisle, Officer Grant Whitaker, tall and in uniform, accidentally dropped a packet of noodles and a bottle of soda. Instead of picking them up, he glanced at the mess and walked away. Trained to pay attention to detail and take responsibility, Naomi couldn't ignore what she saw. Calmly, she stepped forward and said, "Sir, you just dropped a few things. Maybe you should pick them up so as not to inconvenience others." "If you believe powerful people shouldn't get away with this," comment 1. "If you think it's just politics," comment 2. Like and subscribe for the next chapter in this fight for truth. But Grant turned to her with a cold, dismissive stare. Smirking, he said, "Who do you think you are to tell me what to do? I don't have time for trivial matters." Naomi remained composed and replied, "As a police officer, you're supposed to set an example. Picking up your own things is not only polite, it shows respect." Grant didn't acknowledge her words. Instead, he mocked her further. The atmosphere grew tense. Shoppers nearby started watching the exchange. Still, Naomi stood firm. Despite the condescending attitude and public attention, she refused to back down. Grant looked at her again, eyes full of contempt. He stood tall, refusing to act. Inside, Naomi felt anger rise, but her military training kept her calm. With a steady voice, she said, "Sir, this isn't just a small matter. Wearing that uniform, people are watching. Picking up what you drop reflects not just you but your profession." Grant only laughed, mocking her again. "You think you know a lot about police work, but you don't. You should mind your own business." Naomi noticed people pulling out phones. But she wasn't distracted. She was angry at the disrespect and at the prejudice it represented. This wasn't just about her, it reflected a much larger issue. She looked Grant straight in the eye. "You're judging the wrong person," she said. "You may not realize it, but your behavior now will have consequences." Grant didn't take her seriously. But behind Naomi's calm face was the strength of someone who had faced far greater battles. She knew this moment mattered. "I'm not here to argue," she said. "But your actions reflect who you are as a police officer. You should know your responsibilities better than anyone else." Naomi's sharp words made the surrounding crowd begin to pay more attention. Some people stopped shopping altogether and stood to watch the development. Grant, feeling cornered by the eyes now focused on him, decided to mask his embarrassment with arrogance. He laughed, a loud, echoing sound in the narrow supermarket aisle. "Responsibility?" Grant smirked, his voice full of sarcasm. "Who are you to explain that to me? Just a mediocre woman, nothing more, nothing less. Don't think you have the right to stand here and tell me what to do. You don't understand anything about my work." Grant's sexist and racist rhetoric was a powerful blow to Naomi's self-esteem, but instead of letting emotion take over, she took a deep breath and held his gaze. She knew her actions at this moment could become the clearest contrast between a true leader and someone abusing authority. "I don't need you to understand who I am," Naomi replied, her voice calm but commanding. "But I want you to understand that everyone in this society deserves respect. If you can't offer that, then you're the one who doesn't deserve the uniform you're wearing." Grant laughed louder, his tone filled with challenge and contempt. "What do you think you can do to me? I'm a policeman. The law is on my side. And you're just an ordinary woman of color. You should know your place before you get into trouble." His words were more than an insult, they were a direct challenge. Yet Naomi didn't flinch. The silence in the supermarket grew heavier, all eyes watching her. This was no longer a personal argument. It was a moment to prove that calm strength could overcome arrogance and prejudice. Naomi stood straight, her shoulders squared, as if facing an enemy on the battlefield. Though Grant's words were mocking and cruel, she remained still. The crowd grew quieter, seemingly holding its breath, waiting for her next move. She took a step forward, completely unafraid. Her voice was calm but sharp as a blade. "You can think of me however you want. But know this, your arrogance and contempt don't hide your moral failures. I'm not here to fight for power, but I won't let you abuse it either." Grant's confidence began to crack under her calm authority. He looked for any sign of fear but found none, only a woman as solid and unshakable as bronze. People around them were now openly recording the exchange. "Don't act so noble," Grant snarled, trying to regain control. "You're nothing but a troublemaker. If I want to, I can kick you out of here right now." Naomi didn't smile, but the corners of her mouth twitched slightly with calm confidence. "If you think your badge allows you to behave this way, then let the law decide. You were wrong to think I'd be afraid." The supermarket froze. The tension grew as the two stood face to face. Grant, tall and aggressive, loomed over Naomi, who wore no uniform yet carried a quiet, undeniable authority. "You may insult me," she said firmly, "but I'm not standing here alone. There are many witnesses. If you think words can silence me, you're wrong. I'm not here to protect my ego, I'm here to defend the values I've lived for. If you believe powerful people shouldn't get away with this, comment one. If you think it's just politics, comment two. Like and subscribe for the next chapter in this fight for truth." The entire store fell into a deep silence. No one spoke, but their eyes made it clear they stood with her. Grant, despite his tough stance, couldn't hide his growing discomfort. The situation was slipping from his control. Still, Naomi stood like a beacon in a storm of injustice and bias. Even as tension reached its peak and fear rippled through the crowd, she stayed calm. She understood that every word and gesture now spoke for justice itself. Grant stepped closer, voice rising in threat. "I'm warning you, don't make this worse. I'm the police, I have the right to deal with you right here." His words rang out, but they didn't frighten Naomi. They only strengthened her resolve. Without panic, she slowly reached into her pocket and pulled out her phone, not in fear, but with quiet certainty, as if she had planned it in advance. "You have your rights," she said, her voice soft but sharp as steel, "and I have my rights too. Let us see on whose side the law will be." She dialed a number quickly, her voice calm when the call was connected. "Hello, I need support right at the Central Supermarket. There is a police officer who is abusing his power and threatening people. I need the competent staff to come here immediately." Grant was stunned, his eyes wide open when he realized that the situation was no longer out of his control. The crowd began to whisper loudly, and some people stopped recording the video to call the authorities. Naomi, despite standing in the midst of chaos, maintained a calm demeanor. "What do you think you're doing?" Grant roared, taking another step toward Naomi. But she didn't back down. Her eyes looked directly at him without a hint of fear. "I'm doing what you're supposed to be doing, defending fairness and responsibility," she said, her voice firm but not high-pitched. At that moment, police car sirens sounded outside, signaling that help had arrived. The crowd dispersed to give way as the officers entered. Naomi slowly pointed her hand at Grant, her gaze not leaving him. "This is the person you need to consider. All of his actions have been documented and fully witnessed." Grant, who had now lost his arrogance, began to be embarrassed. The confidence on his face disappeared, replaced by confusion and anxiety. Meanwhile, Naomi just stood still calm, as if she had anticipated all the developments. She knew that her intelligence and bravery helped her overcome this challenge, not only to protect herself but also to prove that justice always needs to be done justly. When the supermarket doors opened and Mayor Maxwell Drayton walked in, the atmosphere in the already tense space now became even more serious. He appeared with a majestic presence, his sharp eyes sweeping through the crowd before stopping at Naomi. His footsteps were decisive, like a man who came to solve all injustices. Grant, who had been confused before, was now completely stiff. The usual arrogance on his face disappeared, replaced by a look of bewilderment and fear. He bowed his head and stammered, trying to explain. "Mr. Mayor, this is just a misunderstanding. I didn't mean anything. It's just that she..." But Maxwell didn't let him finish the sentence. "Shut up," he said, his voice quiet but authoritative, interrupting Grant. "I came here because of an urgent call from Colonel Naomi Ellison, a woman I have great respect for. Her behavior has been reported and witnessed by many people. Don't think that your loose justification can erase what you've done." Naomi stood still, her eyes not leaving Maxwell. She felt a slight relief to know that justice was about to be served, but her expression remained steadfast, a reminder that this struggle was not over. Maxwell walked toward her, his eyes softening. "Colonel Ellison, I hope you are not injured or harmed in any way. This behavior is unacceptable and will be dealt with thoroughly." Naomi nodded, her voice calm but still assertive. "I'm fine. But this isn't just about me. This is about those in power needing to be held accountable for their actions. If I hadn't stood up today, there would have been many others who would have been treated unfairly. Maxwell turned to look at Grant, his eyes cold. You have abused your power, insulted a high-ranking military officer, and lost public trust in the police force. You don't deserve to wear this uniform. A female witness from the crowd stepped up and handed her phone with a video recording of the incident. Maxwell glanced at it, and his face became even more serious. This behavior is intolerable, he declared. Then he turned to the police officers who had just arrived. Strip him of his weapons and insignia immediately. An investigation will be opened, and he will be subject to all appropriate punishments. Grant, now completely devastated, was speechless as the officers carried out Maxwell's orders. The crowd standing outside began to applaud as a tribute to Naomi and the mayor's tough action. Naomi, though she did not seek honor, felt a deep sense of relief. When Maxwell turned around, he spoke to her, his voice full of respect. Colonel Ellison, this city needs people like you to remind us of responsibility and integrity. I'm sorry for what you went through. Naomi nodded, her eyes shining with gratitude. Thank you, Mayor. I just hope that these things will bring about real change. Maxwell nodded, his face solemn but sympathetic. We're going to make sure of that. Naomi left the supermarket and stepped out into the sun, feeling her heart light. But she knew that the fight for fairness and accountability never stops, and she was ready to keep fighting, not only for herself, but for all those who could not stand up on their own. After being stripped of his badge and weapon at the scene, Grant Whitaker was taken away in heavy silence. His face was devoid of the original arrogance, replaced by fear and confusion. As the police car rolled away from the supermarket, the crowd had not yet dispersed. The chatter and critical gaze continued to follow him like a ghost. At the police station, Grant was questioned immediately. Video evidence was given, along with testimony from witnesses that made him irrefutable. The head of the police department, which was informed by Mayor Maxwell Drayton, stated that Grant's behavior was a stain on the entire industry. On the same day, he was officially suspended from work and faced a comprehensive investigation. The news spread quickly, not only in the local community but also in the media. Videos of Grant abusing power and treating Naomi Ellison rudely were shared millions of times, sparking a wave of outrage. People who had been treated unfairly by Grant in the past also began to show up, sharing their stories, making his situation even worse. Grant, once proud of his position and power, now faced the inevitable downfall. People who used to know him began to alienate, and former colleagues showed disappointment. In the small house where he lived alone, Grant sat with his head down, clearly feeling the weight of the mistakes he had made. Meanwhile, Naomi Ellison continued her life with humility and determination. She did not seek attention at all, but received countless thanks and admiration from the community. Her actions not only forced Grant to pay the price, but also sparked a larger discussion about responsibility and ethics in law enforcement. In the end, Grant Whitaker not only lost his job but also faced legal charges, including abuse of power and threats with weapons. In subsequent trials, he bowed his head, no longer any sign of the arrogance he once had. That is the price he pays for forgetting that power comes with responsibility and that injustice never has a place in a just society. After the shocking event, Naomi Ellison's life did not return to the way it was before. The story of her courage quickly spread, becoming a symbol for those who dared to stand up against injustice. The press, the media, and even activists praised Naomi as a modern-day hero. But for Naomi, she doesn't feel like a hero. She just sees it as the responsibility that a soldier and a citizen need to do to protect the value of equity. In the weeks that followed, the impact of the event began to become apparent. Local police forces were under closer scrutiny, and some changes in the selection and training process were put in place. Seminars on responsibility and ethics in law enforcement were held, with Naomi invited as a keynote speaker. Standing in front of hundreds of people, she shared her story not to receive applause, but to remind that power is only meaningful when used to protect, not to oppress. As for Grant Whitaker, his career is officially closed. The public trial not only caused him to lose his temporary liberty, but also to lose his honor forever. The community turned its back on him, and those who once supported him could not forgive his abuse of power. In the darkness of his life, Grant began to understand the bitter lesson that pride and injustice not only destroy others, but also bring self-destruction. Naomi, after all, doesn't stop at personal stories. She became an inspiration for many movements fighting for justice and equality. Articles and videos recording her actions are shared everywhere, encouraging people not to be afraid when facing injustice. However, Naomi still maintains a simple and consistent demeanor. She continues to dedicate herself to the military as a living demonstration that true strength does not lie in power, but in integrity and courage to do the right thing. Every time she looks back on the incident, she does not feel regret, but instead a quiet pride, knowing that her actions have contributed to changing a small part of society for the better. For her, this story is not an end, but a reminder that the fight for justice always requires unanimity and courage, and she is willing to face any other challenges in her journey to defend the values she believes in. Naomi Ellison's legacy is not only documented in newspapers and videos that capture the moment she stood in the midst of a storm of criticism and threats, but also in profound changes in the way society views justice and responsibility. Her steadfast steps in the struggle against injustice created a wave of inspiration not only in the military, but also in the community, especially for women and people of color who often face discrimination and marginalization. Every time people hear about Naomi, they remember not only her brave act at the supermarket, but also a resilient woman unafraid to stand against injustice. The workshops she led inspired many, especially in law enforcement, to uphold dignity and respect human rights in all situations. Thanks to her efforts, changes in police recruitment and training are showing results, with more officers becoming aware of their responsibilities and ethical standards. But Naomi's legacy goes beyond reform or public recognition. In her daily life, she has become a role model for younger generations who learn from her how to face adversity with patience, calm, and unwavering determination. She never seeks fame, but the respect she receives from colleagues to the community proves the quiet power of integrity. Despite the challenges throughout her career, Naomi has always stood her ground. She knows legacy isn't defined by awards but by the values left in people's hearts. Her greatest impact is the change she has sparked and the path she's paved for future generations, those who will rise for justice and never fear injustice. Her name will live on, not just in lectures or articles, but in the hearts of those fighting for a fairer world. After the incident with Whitaker, Naomi didn't stop at a personal victory. She set her sights on deeper change, knowing that injustice is widespread and must be tackled at its roots. Each story of oppression she hears deepens her resolve. She believes change cannot rely on a few individuals but must come from a collective effort, where everyone speaks up. Naomi began leading campaigns and organizing events to inspire action, especially among law enforcement. Her message is clear: each of us has the right to say no to abuse, and each of us can make a difference. Her reach extends beyond the military, touching civilians who feel unheard. She urges them not to fear authority, because justice is a basic right that no one can take away. Now, Naomi acts not with caution but with firm conviction. She knows every action, every message creates ripple effects. That is how lasting change begins. She fights not only for herself but for those who cannot. The road ahead is long and hard, and not everyone will follow her. But she believes in the power of unity and the strength each person holds when they refuse to give up. With each step, Naomi transforms her personal fight into a powerful movement, a reminder that justice must be defended not just for one person, but for an entire community. This story reminds us of the value of courage, the essence of true leadership, and the steep cost of unchecked power. It shows that silence in the face of injustice is a form of complicity. If one were the main character in this story, they might realize that bravery isn't always grand. It's found in small, determined actions taken in the face of wrong. A single act may not immediately change the system, but it can spark an irreversible wave of change. Will racism end by the year 2050? The answer doesn't lie in a specific date, but in every step we take today. If each of us has the courage to speak up, then a more just society may not be so far out of reach. Note: this story is entirely fictional and created for the purpose of raising awareness. It highlights issues of responsibility, justice, and the importance of treating everyone with respect and dignity. We firmly oppose violence, prejudice, and injustice in all forms. Viewer discretion is advised.